Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Reasonable Doubt. I'm your host, Jimmy Ardwan. As always, joined by Julio Vela. What's going on, my friend?
Nothing much, just lifting strong, you know?
Brought the gun show out tonight?
I did.
Oh, man. It's like full-on WWE with you.
Hey, well, before I go, if I may, let me tell you something, brother. We got one of the best, the strongest defense lawyers in town, in the country, in the state, Mr. David Ryan.
You can't even...
No?
No?
Oh, well, you know, I tried.
Okay, very well.
David Ryan, thanks for joining us this evening. He will be in with us for the next hour, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. We will have the phone lines open about 8:30 tonight. Take your questions. 713-807-1794 is the number. We'll also have Twitter up during the show. I got it right here on my computer. You can send us your questions and comments to @HCCLA_TV. I know there's a lot going on. We got the election coming up in a couple weeks. We had the third and thankfully the final presidential debate last night, guys, and you know, mercifully that portion of the election year has come to an end, but I know we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about here with what's going on locally. There's a lot that affects the Criminal Justice Center and the courthouse, as we like to call it. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the news that broke yesterday over at HPD, because we've seen so much here in the recent weeks about the evidence destruction over at Precinct 4. Turns out HPD, the sprinklers seem to malfunction over at the property room, and potentially 4,200 criminal cases and 15,000 pieces of evidence may have been compromised due to this sprinkler system disaster. I mean, look, there's nothing you can do about a sprinkler system, but it's just problem upon problem here with law enforcement. I mean, I kudos to them for bringing it out early, but I mean, this is seems to be a real bad stretch for law enforcement here with maintaining custody and control and the integrity of evidence, doesn't it, guys?
So, from what I understand, the HPD has a very large property room, and something set off the sprinklers in the property room where a lot of evidence was being stored or contained in such a manner where the water from the sprinklers could have affected the veracity of that evidence. Is that what the news has said?
Well, JV, you know, I appreciate the fact that you're a host of this show and you need to be politically correct. But, you know, criminal defense lawyers need to know everything about the evidence room, because the evidence against our clients is stored there. We need to know about temperatures. We need to know about storage. And if we don't know that, then you're not doing your job, because that affects things like blood vials that contain evidence on DWI cases or drug cases. It contains evidence in drug cases that could possibly be used against our clients. So we need to know all of that stuff. And I appreciate the fact you're trying to be politically correct on this, but this is not a politically correct issue. This is an issue where we need to know, and let's give credit to HPD, they reported immediately. This is not like Precinct 4, where everything got hidden and everything got swept under the rug. We'll have to have hearings, unfortunately, to determine whether it was Precinct 4 that delayed the reporting or it was the district attorney's office that delayed the reporting. But HPD came right out as soon as it happened and let us know. Now, you have to understand, there are innocent people whose evidence was stored there that has now been destroyed, and their ability to prove that they are not guilty of this offense has gone away. There are guilty people whose ability to negotiate a good plea bargain to save the state and the victims time and say, you know what, we don't have to go through all this. Let's resolve this now and not go through the trauma of a trial. That has all gone away because of this mechanical malfunction.
Well, the interesting thing here is, and they're trying to say they can bring in the scientists from the Houston Forensic Science Center to help them, to help maintain the chain of custody.
Well, with all respect, the Houston Forensic Science people just had to admit that one of their own analysts is a liar. One of their own analysts has not told the truth about their qualifications, about the work they did. And now we're supposed to rely on those people to say that, well, no, wait, we can reconstruct that.
Right.
No, we cannot. We cannot rely on that.
And here's the interesting thing. They talk about and they say it was a malfunction in a property room freezer, okay? Well, what that suggests to me is that it was evidence, if it was placed in a freezer, that would have required some pretty sensitive temperatures to be stored at in order to be maintained properly. So here's the thing. A sprinkler goes off. The whole system, I would imagine, has to be shut down. This stuff that's being stored in a freezer has to be moved, okay? So I don't care what you say. I don't care what scientists you bring in, what technicians you bring in. They're not going to be able to, in my opinion, salvage some of this stuff that has been moved and not properly stored. Because for some period of time, unless they have some backup freezer, but I'm guessing the other freezer may have been full. I mean, it's just, there is going to be so many details here, and the fact that it was a freezer, in my opinion, that's going to add a whole lot more question to this. I mean, if it was just a bunch of boxes sitting out in the room where they say, what they say is, well, most of the evidence was contained in Ziploc bags. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure we've all been over the property room. I mean, you've seen what goes on. I mean, they have shelves. I mean, some of the regular rooms, I can understand, hey, okay, maybe some of this stuff gets wet, but the actual evidence was contained in a Ziploc bag. But hell, this stuff, I'm guessing, had to be maintained at a certain temperature. And they're going to have to move it. They're going to have to take everything out. They're going to clean that thing up. I can't imagine they wouldn't have to shut down the freezer to clean out the water leak. Because guess what? All that water would have froze.
And not to mention all the pink slime.
The slime in the ice machine?
Right, that's what I was going on. But what I'm trying to say, okay, so what does Devin do?
Julio Zendler over here.
What, okay, you're sitting district attorney. What do you do? Sprinkler goes off. What do you do?
Well, look, let's be fair for a moment. This apparently is a mechanical problem that has nothing to do with the state. That said, that does not change the reality that, for whatever reason, this evidence needed to be frozen, and now it has thawed out. Mm-hmm. Now it has been wetted. Now it has been contaminated. You cannot now turn around and say with 100% integrity that this evidence is valid. And look, this is biologic evidence. This is blood draws. This is stuff that really matters in really important cases. You have innocent people who are waiting trial for the evidence to show that they are innocent. You have guilty people who are waiting to show that they are guilty, and therefore they can see whether or not they can resolve their case. I'm a little more concerned about the innocent people.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, since we pay millions of dollars to people who are wrongfully convicted. Since we know there are thousands of people in TDCJ who are innocent of the crimes they are accused of, but the evidence at that time, because science wasn't evolved enough to prove their innocence.
Well, I understand what you're saying about the innocent people. I'm concerned about all of them because, frankly, if we let the state, or if anybody lets the state get away with reconstructing this chain of custody,
There's
I have
no
a real
way.
issue.
There is no way you can reconstruct the chain of custody. This evidence has been contaminated.
Yeah.
Period. No ifs, no ands, no buts. This is the end. This has been contaminated. Okay? Nobody is saying the state of Texas did it on purpose.
No.
However, that should not penalize an individual who is now charged with a crime because he has no control over this, and the state of Texas, even though it may not be their fault, has now destroyed that evidence or made it scientifically unreliable. That's not on the defendant. That goes against the state, and that is what the Constitution is about.
Well, again,
all of the presumptions go against the state. The state messed up.
Well, the state didn't. I'm gonna stop you there. I don't think the state messed up. Look, it was
Why
an
not?
accident. Well, because it was an accident. The freaking sprinkler system
Excuse me.
went off.
Wait a minute. The state of Texas was in charge of this evidence.
The sprinkler system messed up.
And a
okay, hold on.
defendant should pay for that.
No. Listen.
Somebody who has no resources,
that's not what I'm saying.
and all of our
I'm
tax
not saying
dollars
that.
are
I'm saying-
used against him to convict him.
Hold on.
That should be held against him. You're wrong.
No, hold on.
You're wrong.
Let me finish before you tell me I'm wrong or I'm
You're
right. all right?
wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. Here's the thing. A damn sprinkler went off, okay? That, as you said, that's not an intentional mistake on the part of the state. What then becomes intentional is if this thing gets to a point where, like with Precinct 4, where the state is still trying to shove pleas down people's throat, then we have a problem. But right now, we're still in the stage where a sprinkler went off. It was an accident. Okay,
so-
unless you can tell me that somebody went in there
the
with
state of Texas is forgiven because there was something that the defendant cannot control. Individual rights. That's what
not what I'm saying.
Wait a minute. The Bill of Rights is about individual rights.
Right.
Our right is to test the evidence.
Yeah, but you're not listening to what I'm saying.
No, you're trying to make excuses for the state.
No, you're jumping to conclusions before I even finish
That's
it.
wrong.
No.
The state of Texas had a
I'm not
had
trying
a
to take up for the
responsibility
state.
to make sure that all of this evidence was properly kept.
It doesn't say that somebody went in there with a wrench and started beating the sprinkler system.
And they do not get the ability to say, oops, we had an accident. Screw the defendant anyway.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's not correct.
That's not what I said. Listen to what I say.
So-
I'm saying that it was an accident that the stuff got screwed up, all right? Where it becomes an intentional problem is if the state sits there and tries to shove plea deals and try to say, you know what, guys, we've got this. We've got a chain of custody. We've got these people. And if defense lawyers are weak and don't stand up, then it's a problem.
It doesn't matter that they didn't intend for this to happen.
Right.
It happened.
I
No
agreed.
defendant should be required to face charges on biological evidence that has been contaminated with.
But we don't.
None of them.
They haven't even
You
tested it yet.
cannot correct that.
I totally agree with you.
I tend to agree
But it's
that.
not. But it's not intentional at this point.
Well, I tend to agree with you on as far as chain of custody issues. I never thought about them having to remove property from this sprinkler system. That now you got to go to the backup freezer or an alternative freezer. The chain of custody issue, I think, is going to be huge.
My problem here is that this has the potential to really, get to a point if the state tries to push it and say, well, we think that we can solve the chain of custody issue because we had the forensic science people come in and we properly moved. Because what they say is they're bringing these people over from Harris County Forensic Science Center or Houston Forensic Science Center. I'm sorry, I keep getting those two mixed up. But they're bringing them over to be qualified to maintain the chain. I'm with you, David. I don't understand how you maintain the chain because once the water gets in there, game, set, match, the stuff has been contaminated, the chain has been broken, okay? But at this point, I don't think anybody went in there with a wrench and started beating it around and say, we're just gonna screw up this stuff and see if we can coerce some guilty pleas out of people. But I don't think that's what happened. I think it was an accident. But I'm with you. I don't think that people, and look, this is one of those things that happens. If it's an accident and stuff gets destroyed, Guess who gets the benefit of that? The defendants, hopefully. Hopefully they don't try to ramrod pleas down people's throats.
And you're going to trust the Houston Forensic Science Center, who employed for years someone who lied about their credentials.
I think that was the medical examiner's office, wasn't it? You know her better.
Houston Forensic Science Center.
Fesselwerk
was Houston Forensic Science Center.
Who employed for years.
I thought it was the medical office. Harris County Forensic.
No, it was not. You're trusting people who are supposed to be scientists, who are supposed to just care about the science, and employed somebody who lied about their credentials, lied about the evidence, and still allowed the state to sponsor that evidence. No, I don't trust them.
You know, okay. So what's next? What does Miss Anderson do? What does she do?
Well, Gual was with the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences.
What?
So you're not blaming the right agency at this point. Look. The Forensic Center, the Houston Forensic Center, they've had their own problems, but they haven't sponsored the perjured witness.
But what does Devin do now?
Well,
what does she do?
Look, I think they've got to go through. They've got to go through each piece of evidence. They've got to figure out, what's contaminated, which obviously we're going to take the position it's all contaminated, because I don't see how, if water spills into a freezer, you've elevated the temperature of that freezer by introducing water into the air. So I think it's all contaminated. But I'm sure that they are going to try and salvage some of this, and they're going to go in on some of these cases, and they're going to try and say, we do have the ability to maintain the chain of custody, and we still think this evidence is viable, and it hasn't been contaminated or cross-contaminated. I guarantee you that's going to happen. If I'm Devin, what I first do is I get an investigator out there and find out what the heck happened. Was it an accident? Did a pipe burst, or did somebody go in there with a wrench and start busting everything? Figure out how the hell did this happen? Was there some malicious intent behind it, or was it just an accident? And then you start to look at the evidence. I don't know how they salvage it. I really don't. I mean, it doesn't seem to me they can. How you can move stuff out of a freezer after it's been contaminated by water, it's going to get mold. How do you dry all that crap out? You can't. There's going to be mold. There's going to be all sorts of stuff.
You're going too easy on it. It's not just mold. These things have been frozen for a reason. Water has now been introduced. This is going to thaw it out. That is going to change the balance and the chemical efficacy of that particular thing.
Right.
Okay? Even if it's been freeze-dried, it doesn't matter. It's now been thawed. It has now been warmed. So it doesn't matter. The proper thing to do, remember, the Constitution says that we have these Bill of Rights. These Bill of Rights are to protect the citizenry from the government. I don't care what Devin thinks she can prove. What I care about is the fact that a citizen's rights have been violated. And those rights are more important in the long run than any conviction today on any given matter. I don't care if it's DWI. I don't care if it's possession of drugs. I don't care if it's rape. I don't care if it's murder. What I care about is that the citizen's right, the individual, which is protected by the Bill of Rights, has had his rights affected. The case needs to be dismissed.
So, let me ask you, do the people who are affected, what remedies do they have? I mean, what do they do? Do they just say, well, I have an HPD case and now my lawyer needs to get to the bottom of this? What do they do? Are the cases in limbo, or what's the next step for the individual who may have been affected for this?
In my mind, I think that his lawyer should be doing their job, which is to find out if that evidence was affected, and if it was, then to make sure that he is not prosecuted based on that evidence. If they can make the case without that evidence, that's a different issue, okay?
Yeah.
But If they cannot make the case without that evidence, then that case needs to be dismissed.
I mean, I think there's a distinction here. You look at what just went on in Dallas with the forensic expert up there, who's now pled the fifth in the middle of a DWI trial because it was found he switched vials. I mean, that's an intentional act where somebody has, where a forensic scientist has gone in and intentionally messed around with the evidence, okay? That's a real problem, all right? That's a huge problem because then you've got scientists, as we had with Gual, where they're manipulating the case against the defendants, okay? And that to me is the most deplorable thing, and I hate to use the word deplorable because it's been thrown around in this election here so bad, but it is. I mean, for a forensic person to come in there and intentionally manipulate evidence the way these people have, that is something that is just awful, and nobody should stand for that. This is a little bit different scenario because I don't believe anybody intentionally sought to destroy the evidence. It's now the question is, what do we do with it? And the issue with Precinct 4, that guy clearly destroyed the evidence, not without a court order. That's kind of one of those in-between things. I mean, but these, again, the defendants are the ones who should get the benefit of this, okay? They're the ones who should get the benefit, not the state. The state shouldn't get the benefit and say, oh, well, that was a rogue actor or some accident or something like that. We should still prosecute our case. Because I'm with you, David. The point is, and we've talked about this on the show, Julio, the DA's office does not represent the police department. That's not their client, okay? Their job is not to, basically help the police department and the investigators make their case. That's not their job. That's not their client. They're not advocating for their client. They're advocating for the state of Texas, and guess what? The state of Texas includes the people that are accused. The job is for the DA's office to, seek justice for victims, okay? But you also look out for the rights of the accused.
District attorneys and assistant district attorneys swear an oath to seek justice, not to seek convictions. Justice is not served when the evidence is contaminated. The evidence is contaminated. It doesn't matter whether it was intentional or not.
Right.
Okay? It is either contaminated or it is not. If it is contaminated, it is inadmissible. If they can make the case without it, go forward. If you can't, dismiss and go on to the next case. There are plenty of people out there who are guilty beyond all reasonable doubt for you to prosecute. You do not need to try to reconstruct cases when the evidence has been tampered with, whether it was intentional or not.
We're going to switch subjects because we've yelled at each other enough on this one.
It's a great topic. I love it.
I'm not done yelling at you.
No, you're not. We still got more stuff. We still got more stuff to yell about. But I want to get into the race for the district attorney's office here in Harris County.
Why?
Well, I do because it is we're getting big money from outside coming into this race. We're starting to see TV ads really getting ramped up. It's become a high stakes race. It really has. We are seeing outside money come in the form of George Soros, who donated $500,000 to Kim Ogg's campaign. It came out this week that solely used for TV ads, and I don't know if you guys have seen the TV ad yet, but direct shot over the bow of Devin and her office for jailing the rape victim.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes straight at that.
I haven't seen it.
And, of course, the counterpunch from Devin's office and from Devin's campaign is, the liberal George Soros is now getting involved in the DA's race here in Harris County, and he's picked this race, that he's picked certain races to get involved in. The more interesting thing that I saw today is that actually what may be, aside from Soros and everybody else getting involved, is that incumbent hardline DAs are having a real time across the country holding their position, that people are really truly starting to say, hey, look, we need some criminal justice reform in this country. And it starts at the local DA's level. So, this is really getting interesting here as we come into the closing stretch, and I wonder, guys, is this going to be? Are we going to have this for the next couple cycles here with the DA's race? Are we going to see big money pumped in? Has Harris County, by virtue of its size, has the DA's race become one of those targeted races, in your opinion?
Well, yes. I think people, there's a movement to end mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a movement to change low-level drug offenses. I think there is a movement to address mental health in the justice system. However, I still believe that money controls politics and money controls the legislature. And I don't see a national figure that is not only stepping up but also credible to champion those causes. So I think that we will continue to mass incarcerate individuals. I think we will continue the war on low-level drug offenses. And I think we will continue to see mental health not addressed in the appropriate capacity. What says you, David?
I think you're wrong.
Pick on him for a while. Pick on him.
Okay, first things first. As you guys both know, I am a conservative Republican. I'm a card carrier. I'm no rhino. I'm actually of that mindset. When liberals forget that it's the Koch brothers who have proposed the criminal justice reform, they wind up seeing that a lot of what they have proposed goes on with their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? A lot of the requirement that drug offenders need treatment, they don't need incarceration. Okay? Drug dealers are a different issue. Drug addicts shouldn't be incarcerated. They need treatment. Okay? Asking somebody if they're a felon before you even find out whether or not they're qualified for the job is wrong. We need to take that box off of there and let's see whether or not that person is qualified for the job before we decide, because they're a convicted felon, which may be a low-level drug offense, and set that aside. Because if they're qualified, then, why are we considering, just because they're a felon, because they smoke crack instead of pot, that disqualifies them for the job. So these are things where we have real common bond. When Bobby Mims, a member of HCCLA, past president of the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, liberal Democrat out of Tyler, Texas, was the president of TCDLA, one of the things he found was that the best friend the criminal defense bar has in the Texas legislature is the Tea Party. The Tea Party is the one who proposed making marijuana legal. The Tea Party is the one who wanted to defund the private prisons. The Tea Party is the one who wanted to give more treatment and less incarceration. There are ways for us to talk about this across the spectrum. It's time for us to set aside our agendas and let's talk about what we can agree on, which is the brilliance of the American experiment.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, it comes from two different places. You look at the liberal side of things, and they want to do all this stuff in the name of social reform. The Tea Party, which you mentioned, they purely look at it from an economical standpoint and say we shouldn't be spending this much money doing this stuff. I think the social,
Jimmy, wait a minute.
I think the social aspect of it is secondary for this.
Wait a minute. who the hell cares? Wait a minute. Who the hell cares?
Would you let me finish?
You're both going to get to the same result.
But that's why you can't get there.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Sorry for swearing on cable.
That's because
that is not true. If you put aside your politics and you say...
But they can't do that. That's the problem.
Wrong. And that is the brilliance of the Americans.
No, they can't do that, and that's exactly what's happening in this race.
The entire way the founding fathers started this was to give us compromise. So let's stop talking to the
people. These people can't compromise.
Jimmy, let me
spell compromise.
Let's stop talking to the cameras. Let's stop talking in 30-second sound bites.
I'm just talking to you right now.
Let's talk about where we agree. Okay?
And look,
wait, hold on. I come from I don't want to spend money locking up people when $5.40 a day pays for treatment on probation and $87 a day covers incarceration. You want to talk about reform and legalization, all that stuff. We're both talking about getting drug addicts out of the system.
I ain't no liberal.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm not.
Let's get that out of the system. There is compromise here. There is agreement here. Stop worrying about where you come from and start worrying about the results.
But that's what I'm saying is they can't get there because each side is so stuck in their ways. They want to accuse the other of being in it for the wrong reasons. They just want to say the Tea Party or the conservative movement wants to say, all you damn liberals, all you want to do is you want to promote welfare and social reform.
And that's why the Tea Party says,
you just want to cut the budget.
Why the Tea Party says legalize pot and the Democrats vote against it.
I agree.
Bullshit.
But this is the
bullshit.
problem. But this is the problem with this race. I mean, look.
Stop.
But this is the problem with this race, okay? And you've got Republicans basically encouraging other Republicans not to vote for Devin, not because of criminal justice reform, but because of the Planned Parenthood thing. That's their only thing. They're mad about the way she treated the Planned Parenthood case and the fact that the individuals got indicted who were taking the undercover video. And so now the Republican Party is saying, well, you guys shouldn't vote for. They don't really care. They're running these ads about. They're helping Kim Ogg run these ads about jailing the rape victim. They're out there saying Devin doesn't care about victims and all this. And the real reason they're doing it is because that's what plays to the media. What they're really upset about is the Planned Parenthood thing. That's what they care about. That's what's got their knickers in a twist.
Wait a minute.
To borrow a British phrase.
Wait a minute. Now you've brought it back to a different issue.
Because that's the issue we started with.
But
you two went off. I asked the question about this race, and y'all two went off on some little, yellow brick road talking about some other crap that I didn't even ask about.
When are you going to come down?
Huh?
When are you going to come down?
Come down from what?
So
apparently you've never listened to Elton John, but everybody else in the room got it.
They did.
I have listened to Elton John.
They did.
Okay, look. Devin's got a number of problems. Some of them she inherited, okay? Some of them are of her own machinations. Some of them are because she believes she's doing what a good boss does, which is backing her people. Some of them are because she has policies that are not functional in 2016. I don't know that Kim Ogg is the solution. I know Devin Henderson has a lot of problems.
Right. She does.
Has a lot of problems. And to me personally, I'm not nearly as invested as who the prosecutor is as to what happens further down the ballot. We have some very, very good judges. I sat actually yesterday in Ryan Patrick's courtroom, and I don't think there's a criminal defense lawyer that would say you don't get a fair trial. You do not get a fair hearing. You do not get justice in Ryan Patrick's court. And I had a very liberal Democrat who we were in a private moment, so I won't reveal who that was, who said, I really hope we don't lose this judge. And I don't want to lose Ryan Patrick. I don't want to lose Kristen Guinea. I don't want to lose Stacey Bond. On the other hand, as this card-carrying Republican was out there, I sponsored the fundraiser for Maria Jackson in 339th, who is a Democrat, because she, the same way, she's a fair judge. My concern on the DA's race is what happens down ballot, because I don't want straight ticket.
Yeah.
There are good Democrats on the bench. There are good Republicans on the bench. Every Republican I want off the bench is not up for re-election right now. Okay?
Doesn't it just work out that way?
Yeah, trust me, next year, guys, trust me, I will be, there are some Republicans who I will be campaigning against. And I wish the Democrats would quit running their good candidates against the good Republicans.
In the gubernatorial years.
You run your BS candidates against the crappy Republicans. No, run your good candidates against the crappy Republicans, because trust me, there are those of us who are in the system, and we are the swing votes, the people who don't vote straight ticket.
Yeah.
That will make sure that bad Republican judges get off the bench. I want to keep good Democrats on the bench. I want to keep good Republicans on the bench. I would love us if we could go to nonpartisan elections for judges, because I think it's going to be fairer. I think it's going to be better for everyone. Unfortunately, what's happening in the DA's race, and Devin's got problems, and Devin has brought some of them on herself, like accusing defense attorneys, saying anything they can to get a defendant off like they're innocent. That's wrong. And that doesn't help her cause, and that does not help the cause of justice. I'm not so sure that the things that Kim Ogg has said help the cause of justice either. And I don't think that George Soros, being involved in these frontline elections, he's opposed to the death penalty. That's fine. But there are certain crimes, and we've discussed this on the program before, there are certain crimes that are so heinous that society has the right to demand you lose your life for it. The problem in Texas is funding the defense.
We'll get to that in a moment. I want to remind everybody, we're taking your phone calls. I can't promise that David won't yell at you if you call in, but nonetheless,
Or that I won't swear.
We'll take them. 713-807-1794. You can also hit us up on Twitter at HCCLA_TV. Send your questions and comments right over here. You know, the interesting thing, still staying on the election for a little while, guys, I heard this morning, I listened to a group of speakers from the Get Out the Vote movement. And one of the things that struck me that really was scary about it, and it was interesting, scary, and disturbing all in the same moment, was they have these groups that go out into the community to try and get people registered to vote, okay? Or if they're already registered to vote, they're trying to encourage them to go to the polls and tell them where the polls are and all this stuff. But the one response when they go up, they said, when trying to get people registered to vote or tell them where they are, why don't you vote? Why aren't you registered to vote? You know what the number one answer was that they said? Because I don't want to get selected to go down for jury duty. And they were scared that by registering to vote that they were going to have to show up for jury duty. And that was really disturbing to me as a lawyer. And the other scary part too about it is, you know, one, you've got these groups that are trying to go out there and round up people to vote, and they're not really wanting to participate in the system, clearly. You know, I mean, if they don't want to show up for jury duty, that's part of being in the system and being vested in it. I mean, it was a really scary comment.
Yeah. You know, it's part of my voir dire every time I do one, was that in Thomas Jefferson's second inaugural speech, he said, for the right to a trial by jury, we have shed precious blood. This is where there's no place more in anything we do where democracy happens. They don't allow us at this particular point in time, which is probably unconstitutional, to advocate for jury nullification. But for a century, we allowed that, to say, that's what the law is, but not in this case. Not in this case. And we're all criminal defense lawyers. We all know that we have to tread a very fine line, but we frequently say to juries, really? Pot, less than 2 ounces, okay? This is less than half a bone. You're really going to convict this guy? Todd DuPont, the former host of this show, he had a trace case where his client got on the witness stand and said, look, if I had known it was there, I would have smoked it. And Todd's closing argument, which Todd is very proud of, was to stand up in front of the entire jury is, if you're going to convict on this amount, do what you got to do, and sat down. And the jury found his client not guilty in 15 minutes. Okay? We need to probably empower people to understand. You really want to see change? You want to see the pot laws change? Stop convicting people. You want to see prostitution laws change? Stop convicting people.
Yeah, I think that is where, because a lot of these get out the vote activist groups, they are trying to use, their whole thing today was, well, instead of trying to educate them about the candidates, we try to educate them about issues like criminal justice reform and that sort of thing. But I'm with you, David. I mean, if it's not so much educating them about criminal justice reform, it's about educating them to take part in the system and to go down and be part of the juries and see what goes on and listen to the evidence in cases, because that's how you make change.
Jimmy, one of the things that unfortunately is a reality of the electorate is that they don't get moved by criminal justice issues. Okay? People are concerned about abortion, welfare, these kind of things. I don't care which candidate you're voting for. I have very serious concerns about my right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment, my right to be free of unreasonable search and seizure with both of these candidates.
Yeah.
I have problems with the Supreme Court nominee that the president has pending that apparently isn't going to get a vote, okay? Because his decisions on the Fourth Amendment aren't particularly friendly to us.
No.
I have a problem with millennials who want to put everything they have on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and everything else, and don't consider the fact right now that what I share with my friends should be between me and my friends and none of the government's business. I'm concerned that CNN is attacking WikiLeaks because they're putting Hillary Clinton's emails out there, and I could care less whether you're concerned about what was written there or not, but CNN is saying this is illegal. Wait a minute, this is another media, this is another form of media that's saying this, and now you're saying, I want my First Amendment right, but I don't want them to have their First Amendment right. This is a problem for all of us. It is a slippery slope, and this is one of the things where criminal defense lawyers wind up not on ideological lines, where we actually all get very libertarian, where we say, no, you cannot do this. This affects way too many other people, and this needs to stop. Whether it's WikiLeaks giving us Hillary Clinton's emails, whether it's Obama and before him, Bush, going in with these secret warrants and nobody knows they're there until 72 hours later. Whether it's Obama using drones to kill American citizens overseas without giving them the ability to have due process of law. Wait a minute, If you have that, then why are we complaining about cops keep killing people in the streets? It's the same thing. Nobody has been given due process of law, and I'm not down with Black Lives Matters at all. I think it's a racist organization. But that said, there is still a legitimate point that people are entitled to their day in court, and a cop on the street, the military, the government does not have the right to say, we're judge, jury, and executioner right now. If they do, what are we doing? We're on a talk show for no apparent reason. That nobody calls into, by the way.
No.
Well, we usually get some calls, and I don't know
one or
if,
two. I don't know
what
what's
nobody
going
wants to call in. Call them. I want
scared them all
somebody
off.
needs to put David Ryan to task.
Scared them all off.
Somebody's listening. Come on.
Let's talk about a topic that's near and dear to our heart, maybe not to too many people, but that's lawyers getting compensated. This week, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals determined, and David, I know this is something that's near and dear to you because you work on capital cases a lot, but they determined that $48,000 in pay for an appointed lawyer on a capital case to sit second chair, that's too much. I can't imagine, given our earlier conversations this evening, that you wouldn't have a strong take on this.
Okay, so let's let the people in the booth know. 3, 2, 1. Bullshit. Look, capital murder is the most serious crime we have in the state of Texas. The state of Texas has determined there are certain crimes that are so heinous that you should forfeit your life for that. I'm not opposed to that idea. I actually believe that that's appropriate. However, the people who defend that person need to be given all of the resources they need. Capital murder is not an easy case. As the United States Supreme Court said, death is different. Here's the problem. You mess it up, oops, I'm sorry, my bad doesn't work. Okay? Someone is dead because of that. It takes hundreds and hundreds of hours of work to do capital murder.
In this one, the case...
The last capital murder I tried, that death got waived about 6 months before we tried it, so it was tried as a non-death. I was paid as lead counsel $60,000 for. I agreed to take a pay cut in order not to justify my fees, just to get paid, now be done with it. That was on me.
And how long did you work on that case?
4 years. Okay? I have a death capital right now where it is likely that the death penalty will still be sought, and we will go to trial on it as a death penalty case. My fees are easily over $250,000 at this point. I got paid yesterday on a different death capital case for 4 months' work. It was only $150 an hour, which according to the United States Supreme Court, I should be paid $300 to $400 an hour. But we took it at $150 an hour. And we actually showed on the bill what we weren't charging for. And the judge did not question the payment. But at $150 an hour for 6 months' work on an interim basis, it was not nearly enough. And it was probably $48,000. It was probably a quarter of what that lawyer paid, was quoted for the entire case. The statute says when you're charged with capital murder, you are entitled to 2 lawyers that are death qualified, at least one is death qualified, an investigator and a mitigation specialist until the state of Texas says we're not going to seek death. The Court of Criminal Appeals has violated their own statute. Okay? We have an opinion recently in the last year that says that even in a non-death situation, the defense must do mitigation work. We must try to find reasons for the jury to say punishment should be lesser, not more. Now, the problem with that becomes if you're going to cut these fees, if you're going to say, well, it's a non-death capital, so it's automatically life without parole. What if the jury comes back with plain vanilla murder? Now your client's eligible for parole. Now he's eligible for less than life without parole. What if they come back with manslaughter, where he's eligible for probation from the judge? And you haven't done this work. That's ineffective assistance of counsel. The lawyer is not doing his work. If your loved one is on trial and he has a court-appointed lawyer, do you want the court-appointed lawyer to only be worried about what the judge is willing to pay him, or you're worrying about him making sure that your loved one is either found not guilty or gets the least amount of punishment available?
The interesting thing about this case was that they said, well, we're not doubting the work was done, but the lawyer didn't jump through all the right hoops, basically. They didn't technically follow what you were supposed to do to get paid. And I wonder if that will have a chilling effect on quality lawyers actually signing up to take on these kind of cases.
I can tell you from personal experience that it absolutely does. Craig Washington, who had a federal death penalty case where they questioned his bill, and he said outright he was not the best bill keeper in the world. And they cut his fee, but, you know, he didn't protest very hard about that. Death work is difficult. And it is fairly to say, it is very difficult when I'm trying to save someone's life to be worried about my accounting. On the other hand, as they said in Godfather 2, this is the business we have chosen. You know, if we're going to do this kind of work and you want to be paid fairly, you need to document. And in my opinion, not just death penalty work, every appointed case you have, you bill every cent. Let the judge decide they're not going to pay you for it, and then it's up to you as to whether or not you want to appeal it. But bill every cent, because there are judges out there that if you trying to be fair with their bill will still cut your bill, and now you have no ability to argue about what you didn't get paid. Bill fairly. That's why I have a legal assistant, and that's all she does is take care of my billing, so I don't have to.
We finally got a call coming in. We should take it. Hello, thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Hello, yes, hi. My name is Angela, and I just want you guys, I heard you making the comment saying no one's calling in. My mom and I are sitting, and to be honest, what caught our attention, we're going through the channels, and we heard Attorney Ryan say BS. We said, did he say BS? So we turned back, and we're listening, and I just want you to know that you guys are giving so much information for people to chew on. I think they're kind of, they don't know what questions to come up with yet because you're giving so much information. I want to encourage you guys to keep doing the show because, the information that you're giving is so valuable. And, my mom and I are sitting here like, oh, my God, I didn't know that. So I just want to encourage you guys to keep doing the show. We're tuning in. I'm sure others are. They probably just don't know what to ask.
Well, no, we trust me, we appreciate that, and it's good. It's good to know that you're watching and that we're actually providing a useful service. I don't know what else we would do on Thursday nights, frankly, but don't worry, we're going to keep doing the show. It's not going anywhere.
Tell your friends. Every Thursday, we're here.
Most definitely. And even with the fair, I love the balance and the fair issues that, like Attorney Ryan had mentioned. He said, I may not, agree with your action, but when it comes to the law, we still have to, do what's right. you may be taking on a certain action. And, I even heard you mention about the Black Lives Matter. You say even though I believe it's a racist group, at the end of the day, if someone is executing their First Amendment, then are you saying that this other person can't? So I just appreciate it. I enjoy it. So I just want to encourage you guys.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it.
Yes. And
we're doing something right.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear from this is why we're here. We're here for the community. And okay, so going back to the topic we were talking about. Okay, so let's say if you put it on a scale, you have the state of Texas or the government on one hand, and you have the citizen accused with his defense team on the other. The state of Texas is going to spend money on 3 to 4 years litigating this case, including attorneys, a full attorney staff, private investigators, experts, and also the state of Texas will be including the court staff, the judge, and everyone else involved. Easily hundreds of thousands of dollars, $200,000 to $300,000 it takes the state of Texas or more to litigate a capital case. Yet it's complaining about paying a defense lawyer for defending a person accused of a crime.
Julio, here's your problem. You're doing it like this. It's like this.
It's like
this. Okay? That's the way it really is. The defense doesn't, as I've said before, I believe in capital murder. I believe in the death penalty. Okay? There are certain crimes that are so heinous that society has the right to demand you forfeit your life. That said, you have to give that person all of the resources necessary to defend themselves. Because it's really easy to say, Timothy McVeigh deserves the death penalty. He was unremorseful for what he did. And killed 168 people. It is easy to say that Tisnarov is unremorseful for what he did and killed 3 people at the Boston Marathon and injured many, many more, and killed a police officer after, and is unremorseful. But not every capital murder is that. And if they're the worst of the worst, then they deserve the best of the best defense, because that's the way the system is set up.
And on that note,
Dave,
wrap it up.
Plug it and send us goodbye.
Good night. No more swearing.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Our good friend Brent Mayer will join us for next Thursday.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. He told me he will show up.
I just want to know.
He will. He'll be here. You can catch us. Go check out our website, www.hcclatv.com. Good night, everybody.